This is Off Air, the podcast series. Welcome to it. My name is Tobegani. Thank you so much for making time to listen. And once again, a special welcome to those who are listening for the very first time. We hope that you make it a habit to listen to this podcast. We do this on a weekly basis, one episode per week. Our episodes are made available on our social media platform, our Facebook page in particular, where you can click like and also follow us. And we make these episodes also available on our YouTube channel. Please do subscribe on that particular YouTube channel called Off Air. Well, today we are doing this for the 6th time. So this is episode 6 of the Off Air podcast series. There's plenty to talk about, but we only have time for those that are more important.
You know, she came in, she was like, "You're not gonna spank these kids, are you?" And the headmaster was like, "No, never. No, we can never spank a child, never." She was like, "Okay then, bye-bye." She went on her plane, back to America. Principal was there. "Hi, Oprah. Yeah, right, as who right then? Hi." "No, never. Us spanking a child, never. We beat them." We beat. That's what, we beat children. Don't spank a child, Spanking is for playing. You can spank a monkey. Spanky. Spanky, monkey, spanky, You can spank a monkey, don't spank a child. We beat.
I'm sure you know why I played you that clip. The South African Constitutional Court recently delivered a verdict which implies that it is now against the law to spank your children. So you could possibly face some jail time or prosecution for spanking your kids. Yay! I know it's tough. It's tough in this country. So those with kids, my advice to you is that don't let the courts raise your kids for you. You know? And don't spank them. Don't. Murder them.
I raised my kids the same way my mom and daddy raised me. Cause fuck that money, that shit'll get your ass in trouble. Raising them punk ass kids by some book. I kicks my kids' ass like my daddy kicked my ass. All the damn time. My daddy's motto was, wherever you show out, that's where you get worked out. You show out in the grocery store, God damn it, aisle number 8 it is. Beat your ass all over the store. He be calling in, it's against the law in California to whip your children. I don't give a shit. I'm beating the fuck out of my kids. All the time. If you don't kick your kids' ass, you're gonna have problems with them.
So today's show is slightly different. We only made time to focus on the matter that has stirred the emotions of an entire country. So we will not waste any more time. We go straight into today's evaluation of ispitipiti.
As soon as there is a spitipiti, then you evaluate. Evaluate ispitipiti.
Yes, indeed. On today's episode, we pay attention to the matter that has caused so much social media spitipiti in the past couple of days. That is the announcement by Minister Angie Motshekga at the SADTU conference recently about formalizing grade 9 as one of the exit points from the schooling system. Those who've been following the show, this part of the show I call the evaluation of spitipiti, is where I share my opinion on matters that are trending on social media. So before I do that today, I must first declare that I am a teacher by profession. Some of you know this. Those who didn't know, now you do know that that's what I do for a living. So my opinion on this matter is informed largely by what I have experienced and what I have observed in the education system. Be that as it may, it remains my opinion. There is one clip that I tried to find on the internet, but I could not find it. It's a clip of former President Thabo Mbeki once asked a question about the unemployment in the country. The question was alluding to the fact that there are many graduates in this country and yet they are unemployed. Now, his question, before he answered, he went on to answer what he was being asked, was that what are the graduates qualified to do? And that was I found that very deep, in a sense that what he was actually addressing was the fact that there is a mismatch between the outputs of graduates and the needs of the country. This is something I do very often when I'm with the learners, especially those that are in grade 12 and those who are not so sure what is it that they want to do with their life. We look at the mismatch between what the country actually produces and what the country really needs. And you find that there's a serious challenge, in a sense that we are producing graduates who are not useful to the economy of the country at this point. Now, just a few days ago, coincidentally, I was going through, sometimes I go through these government documents, and I came across what is called the National List of Occupations in High Demand. It was gazetted in 2018 by the then Minister of Higher Education, Naledi Pandor. Now, if you look at that gazette, please go look for it. It's called the National List of Occupations in High Demand. You should Google that and try look at that document. That list actually looks at the skills that are in high demand in the country, and and it's categorized in three. They've categorized those occupations in three categories. The first category is the highest; those that are in highest demand, and those that are in higher demand, and those that are in high demand. Now, interestingly, what you pick up is that in the list of those occupations in highest demand, there is plenty of skills or occupations that are actually catered for by the TVET colleges sector, together with the universities of technologies. That's something that I thought I should share before we go into this matter.
I dropped out of school in the 10th grade. Dropped out in the 10th grade, which is the dumbest thing you could ever fucking do. You know why? Because when you drop out in the 10th grade, you really might as well have dropped out in the 2nd grade. Why? Because you qualified for the exact same jobs. Matter of fact, the person that dropped out in the 2nd grade is more qualified because they have 8 years of work experience.
Well, first thing first, it's important to note that our education system is divided into 4 phases. The first phase being the foundation phase, followed by the intermediate phase, and then there's the senior phase, followed by the FET phase, which is the further education and training. Now, the first 3 phases are referred to as the general education and training phase. And then the last phase, like I said, is the further education and training. So what happens is that before learners enter into the FET phase, they would have to choose a path. They would choose subjects that they will be doing in the FET phase. Now, the FET phase is grade 10 up to grade 12. So the senior phase actually ends in grade 9. And by the end of grade 9, these learners have to choose subjects that they are going to be doing. So that's where the subject choices comes in. I'm sure you are familiar with that. Just to remind you about that particular process. So now, with the current proposal, which was announced by the minister, is that now there would be other options instead of just focusing on staying at school and choosing subjects within the schools, within that school, and going the academic route. Now they're also suggesting that there should be two other options, which is to go through the TVET colleges, whether through the technical route or the what they call the vocational route. So this is something that is not new. It has been happening, quite frankly. It's been happening. Learners have been leaving school at grade 9 and going to the TVET colleges. It's nothing new per se. What is new is that now the learners would not be using their report cards to go to the TVET colleges. You know, right now what they do, they take the report card from school and then they take it to the TVET college to register there. Now what they want is to formalize it and also centralize it in a sense that the grade 9 learners would then earn a certificate. Now I'm going to use the word earn so that we are clear on something here. Now they would use the certificate to go to the TVET colleges. Now, why do I find this important? Is because number one, there is so much corruption in this report cards system, because anyone who has access to a computer can actually fabricate a report card. Now, even if this learner did not pass grade 9, they can still go use a bogus report card and go and register at some TVET college. That is actually happening as we speak. And in fact, even at the school level, there are people who are, corrupt enough to can print out reports for learners who have not actually passed grade 9, just so that they can go to the TVET colleges. So now comes in the certificate to say, no, everyone must have a certificate. Of course, the assumption is that these are people who would have qualified for the certificate. Now, the other thing that they're saying is that this should be done the same way as they do in grade 12. Now, you'd know in grade 12 what happens is that you write these national examinations and the scripts are not marked at the school. Now, the scripts would be marked at the marking centers by teachers by markers who don't actually teach those learners. So it would be regulated by an independent body like they do with the grade 12. Umalusi does regulate the assessments in grade 12. So here is an opportunity for learners to earn a certificate, because the other thing that I think people did when they entered into this debate or this conversation was to assume that as soon as the learners get to grade 9, they'll just be handed certificates. Those who want to stay will stay, those who want to leave will leave. But it's not like that, because they're saying that they're going to regulate it the way that it's done in grade 12. Now, here is something that I found very interesting, which actually excited me about this whole thing. I'm sure by now you know that my view on this whole thing is that I support it. Yes, you are right, I do support it, and I'll tell you why. What I've observed about the education system is that there is no accountability in the lower phases before the FET phase. There is no accountability whatsoever in the grades below grade 10. The current situation is a mess. Believe me, the current situation is a mess in that phase. That is why when you go around and look at all the high schools, you find that your grade 12 learners are always in extra classes. The teachers are teaching from 7 until 5. It's just a mess. And the reason why this is happening is because there are so many gaps that were created in the lower grades. Now, before the grade 12 educators can prepare the grade 12 learners for the final examinations, they must now fill in the gaps first. And those gaps are actually created in the lower grades, where the grade 9s and the grade 8s are. Now, if we bring in an exit point at a grade before grade 12, at an earlier grade, that will create some sort of an accountability. That will bring in some sense of accountability with regards to the people who are teaching in those lower grades there, especially if it's going to be benchmarked using the grade 12 examination system now. Because now you'd remember, that most of the schools, when for us to say this is a good school, we look at the performance in grade 12. But we don't know what's happening in grade 8, grade 9, and grade 10. We don't really care about what's happening there. And believe me, what is happening there will shock you. What is happening there will shock you. You know, there was a time where I saw an examination paper, because in grade 9, most of the subjects, the papers are set by the teachers at the school. There was a time when I saw a question paper which shocked me, a social science paper that shocked me. And I thought to myself, this cannot be happening at a high school level. Because that paper was more like a grade, I don't know, a primary school paper, but it was given to our learners in high school. So there's no accountability whatsoever at those lower grades. So I think that if we are to bring an examination system, a national exam in grade 9, it will bring accountability in that grade, and therefore will arrest most of the problems before these learners go into the FET phase. Right now, the teachers in the FET phase are overworked. Even the learners themselves are overworked. You cannot expect a learner to arrive at school at 6 o'clock and leave at 5 o'clock. It's not school anymore. It's not school. So if this process is followed the way I think it should be followed, and some of the resources that are all thrown in grade 12 as we speak will also be channeled into the lower grades, and it will address our literacy problem. We have a serious literacy problem in those lower grades. A few years ago, I think it was in 2013, it was before I joined the education sector, there was what they call the Annual National Assessment, ANA, which most of the unions did not agree with for various reasons. But the purpose of that thing, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was to assess the learners to see whether they are learning anything with regards to numeracy and literacy. So they were only assessed in 2 subjects, which is the language of teaching and learning and also mathematics. Well, the results for mathematics will shock you. Go and search for it. Search for ANA 2013 mathematics results. They will shock you, because nationally in grade 9, I'm focusing in grade 9 because that's where we are. Nationally, the pass rate was just below 4%. So, which means that less than 4 learners out of 100 were actually passing mathematics. And I still say, one of the challenges that causes that problem was that in those grades there is insufficient teaching and learning. And that's because there is no external exam, there is no national exam that these learners sit for. The same thing can be said about the other lower grades when the learners enter into high school. You know, when I was teaching the lower grades, grade 8 in particular, you'd find learners who are coming from a primary school entering into the high school, they can't even write their own names. So let's bring a national exam which these learners are going to sit for, so that we have a clear picture of what's happening there. And then people must also account. You cannot just hire people and then they don't account. Only the ones in grade 12 are accounting as we speak. So I think when it comes to the exam part of it, this is a brilliant idea and I support it 100%, and it has to happen and it should happen. And another thing that we have to come to terms with as a country is that not everyone is an academic. You know, these learners are gifted in multiple disciplines, and we can't force all of them to take the academics route, which is what we are trying to do now by saying they must stay at school. And believe me, those that are not academically gifted, they don't learn anything between grade 10 to grade 12. They end up exiting in grade 12 having learned nothing between those years from grade 9. So I don't see the purpose or the point of keeping them at school. And in fact, what this does is that it frustrates them. These learners become the ones who are not gifted academically, get frustrated by the demands of the curriculum in the FET phase, because the FET is it's very academic, especially in those subjects that are not technical subjects. It's demanding. And now you are going to demand so much from this learner to a point where they get frustrated. And what they tend to do, these learners who get frustrated, they then retaliate by frustrating the system and frustrating the ones who are actually learning, the ones who are actually benefiting from the academic route. So let's create those other alternatives for them to go and nurture their skills in the TVET colleges, whether in the technical vocational or the technical or occupational. Now, there has been a question that I found very interesting when people were asking, are these TVET colleges well equipped, or is there enough capacity and so on? Funny enough, this I find interesting, is that no one asks the same question about universities. No one is saying, do we have enough spaces in our universities? But they just say, no, learners, they must go to grade 12 and they must qualify, they must get a bachelor's pass. Let's look at the numbers. Honestly, I'm not going to thumb suck numbers here. I'm going to tell you what I've gone through. Now, year in and year out, we have roughly 800 to a million matriculants. Now, let's assume that 1 year, all the matriculants get a bachelor's pass. All of them get a bachelor's pass. What's going to happen to them? Do we have enough universities to absorb all of them? The answer is no. As it is right now, we are struggling to absorb the ones that are qualifying for the bachelor pass right now as it is. And where is our bachelor's pass seated in terms of percentage wise? We're below 40%. Below 40% of our learners are getting bachelor pass, but we are struggling to absorb them at the universities. But yet we still want to put more of them through the academic route so that they can qualify for the bachelor pass and go to the universities. Which universities? We have 23,000 schools in the country and we only have 25 universities. Can those universities absorb everyone? The answer is no. So we should make the TVET colleges alternatives, and based on what I said earlier before I started this, I said most of the skills that the country needs right now are actually catered for in those TVET colleges. So we should not act as if the TVET colleges are of lesser value. They are not. We need artisans. They are prepared there. We need technicians. They are prepared there. But we're trying to keep the learners in the academic route. For what? How does that benefit us? It doesn't benefit us at all. Before I close this, there's a learner, and I'm not. It's not a fabricated story. I'm not making it up. I'm telling you what actually happened. I taught this learner in grade 10, physical science. I teach physical science, by the way. And he failed grade 10 once. Then he failed again, and now he has changed streams from the science stream into the humanities stream, where he's doing tourism, history, and the other non-science subjects. Now, what I've learned about him, the reason why he stayed in the science stream for the 2 years, because he knows that he is an electrician. He loves electricity. And in fact, what I've heard from other people, from the other learners within the school, is that in his neighborhood, they know when it comes to electricity and anything that has to do with electricity, they call him. He's in grade 10 right now. He should have been in grade 12 by now, but of course, like I said, he failed. He knows so much about electricity, and that's his passion. He wants to follow a path that will lead to him working with electricity. But you know what the science stream does? It forces this learner to take other subjects as well. I'm talking about the academic route now. He's forced to take life sciences. Now he has to learn about the heart, the lungs. That's not his thing. He has to learn about whether maybe taking geography or another subject or accounting or so, just so that he can have the 7 subjects that are required by the policy of the academic route. You see, and the moment he fails 2 subjects, he cannot progress to the next grade. He can pass science, but if he fails 2, which is where he's learning about hearts and lungs and veins and so on, and that's he's not strong there. And what's these other subjects? He now has to learn about weather, the tsunamis and the hurricanes and so on. That's not his strong point. Now we then say to the learner, you are stupid. Basically, we're saying because he failed twice, we're now saying, you're a dumb cop, you're failing. But at home, he's known as the electricity genius. Why can't we open this route for him to go and nurture his electricity skills in the TVET college, where he only focuses on that and become a technician or an electrician of some sort? You see, now we are likely going to lose him. We are likely going to lose a technician who maybe could have been a brilliant electrician. We're going to lose him because now he has entered into the humanities stream. And even that is going to still frustrate him. And those are the facts. But if we are going to formalize grade 9 as an exit point and say, no, go and study your electricity at the TVET college, or go and study your arts at the TVET college, you don't have to come and do life sciences and veins and so on. That's not what you like. That's not your strong point. We allow this learner to go and nurture their skills elsewhere. And then by so doing, believe me, we are going to address the shortage of skills in this country. We cannot keep on producing graduates after graduates, and then they sit at home and then we cry foul and say there's unemployment, while at the same time we still say there's a shortage of skills, and we're not addressing that shortage of skills. I chose to look at this announcement from that particular perspective. I know that other people are looking at it in other ways, but I think if this is given a chance, it can work, and it can it can solve some of the problems that we're facing as a country. Now, here's something before I close that I always say to my colleagues, is that there is no perfect system. And the other thing that I often say is that most of the time, it is not the system that is wrong. It's the people who implement the system. The current education system as it is not as bad as we say. But we don't know that because honestly, we don't even do research. We just comment, we just debate without knowing. Even this issue has actually exposed our level of ignorance. On social media in particular, we were exposed in terms of our ignorance. The things that people were saying that you could tell, to a point where I even said, if we were to ask the same people who are lecturing us about how grade 9 as an exit point is a bad idea, and you ask them, Konje, what is the pass requirement in grade 9? What does the learner have to do in order to pass grade 9? They can't tell you. They'll just tell you that he has to get 30%, and that is rubbish. That's not even true. I hear people every day talk about 30% pass rate. There is no such thing. I'm not defending the department. I'm not defending our government. Some of you know very well I'm very critical of our government, but we cannot paint them black all the time. Somewhere things are happening. Like the issue of 30% being a pass. That's not true, because if a learner gets 30% in all their subjects, that learner does not pass. But if you go to the university and a student gets 50% in all their subjects, that student qualifies and gets his degree, because 50% is a pass. But if you get 30% at the high school in all your subjects, we fail. So let's do research, especially people with kids who are already parents. Find out about these things. Find out what it means before we just judge by just looking at the article, the headline of the article, and think this is a bad idea, without actually understanding what is happening. Today's show was today's valuation of PTPT was quite long. It was so long, but it had to be done. It had to go that route. That is my opinion on this matter regarding grade 9 as an exit grade from the schooling system. That's where I stand. I am in full support of it, and I think it could solve most of our problems. Well, episode 6 has become the longest of the 6 episodes that we've done so far, and for a good reason. So there are a few things that I would have loved to highlight on today's episode, but due to the length of the episode, unfortunately, I'll have to move them to episode 7. and then we'll talk about them in episode 7. That's all the time we've had for today's episode. Please remember, we click, we listen, and we share. Thank you so much for making time to listen to today's episode. My name is Thobegani, and this has been Off Air. I am out.